Once upon a time, there was this television show about death. It was sweet and irreverent, and it only lasted 2 seasons, despite the fact that it was a critical darling. And after its 2 seasons were up, it became a cult classic. It was a show created by Brian Fuller. Nope, not that show, the other show. So the concept of the show, Dead Like Me, is there's this girl named Georgia, but she calls herself George, so we do too. George last dies, and when she dies, she becomes a reaper, an undead person who takes the souls of the soon to be departed before they die, thus sparing them the trauma of actual death. The show operates on three levels. As the reapers don't actually get paid for reaping, they must either steal or work in order to make the money to survive, because despite being undead, they still have to eat and sleep and stuff like that. So George becomes a worker in a temp service. She becomes an office drone. And this works as a satire of office work to rival the show The Office itself. And it's quite fun and funny and super irreverent and everything you hope it is. As a Reaper, George and the other Reapers must take souls in various circumstances. They basically work for the branch of reaping that takes care of people who die in circumstances involving external influence, such as murder and accidents and stuff like that. Um, Sometimes the impact of the death is played for laughs, but often enough that it matters, the deaths are actually treated deadly seriously. You actually see the process of people grieving for the people they've lost. You also see the trauma of the recently departed grieving for losing the people that they're leaving behind. And sometimes that drama is actually devastatingly serious. The problem is that the death itself is always played for laughs. It's relentless in how they will never let a single death in the show actually be serious. And sometimes it doesn't work. There's literally scenes where you see a couple that have been together for years, and when one partner dies, the other partner's grief is heartbreaking, but the death itself is essentially, not exactly, but essentially slipping on a banana peel and cracking his head. And it's played as slapstick. It's played as actual slapstick, which is not irreverent. That's insulting. It's insulting to take something as serious as the death of a loved one and play it for laughs. That is not cool. And I never liked that part of the show. Um, and then finally, you have George's family. The third part of the show shows what happens to George's family after her death and how they slowly fall apart. Effectively, this is always played as a straight drama, well, almost always. There is an early attempt in the show to make George's little sister Reggie as irreverent and quirky as George is herself. This doesn't work because, for the most part, it actually makes her look like a budding young serial killer. You know, she's doing things like collecting dead animals and stuff like that, and it actually looks like she's going to turn into the female Dexter. It just doesn't. It's weird. Um, but the juxtaposition of two parts deadly serious and two parts goofy fun, while all parts of the show actually work, they don't actually work together. And it's like watching two really good shows that just can't happen together. So the upside of the show is that most of the acting is great. Ellen Muth kills it as George. You've got Mandy Patinkin. You have Colin Blue. Colin Blue, by the way, was General Zod on Smallville. For those of you who don't know, and you there's the acting is really good, including a lot of the acting by the people who come in to play the dead people or the grieving people. Then the humor is really funny when it's not making fun of the serious stuff. The downside of the show is that the tone is just wrong. Seeing a couple in love separated by death is ruined when the death itself is played out as comic relief. And the heart wrenching grief and the gallows humor never mesh, they never connect. And it feels like two completely separate shows with the same cast and characters. In the end, I like the show. I give it 3 stars. It's well done, but it's just too wrong headed. It's disrespectful of the true grieving process. And that's probably why it only got 2 seasons. So, my question is, what do you think is the best television show out there that got canceled too soon? Me, I've got to go with Joss Whedon's Dollhouse. But what about you? Put your response in the comments below.